So they've just been hearing me laughing at nonsense.
No, I had you muted too, man. It's just like full on comedy of errors. So all I
Right.
was say thank you for saying that that you couldn't hear us. All I said was that my computer full on blue screened. Like it didn't just like Streamlabs crash. No, blue screen of death. So that was
And the
exciting.
blue screening continued all up in here,
Yep. It's a little
everywhere.
distracted. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. All right, let's get back to it. I thank you so much for coming back. First of all, I see lots of people are already back in here. Really appreciate it. Um, what we were saying before the stream cut was that in the Synergy tool spreadsheet that actually dictates what colors are going to happen in the tool, there are two levels of bad. There's a 2 and there's a 1. And a 2 is like, we think this should be red. And a 1 is like, this is really not good to pair together. And so you see there's very few ones in here. You've got a 1 for like, if you're taking Luke Skywalker operative, we really don't think that you should take Chewbacca operative. But if you're taking the commander, it's not the same, right? It's that it's a shared operative slot and having to do with points cost and things like that. So you can kind of glimpse down at the bottom. There are a lot of sheets, and some of them have names on them for the people who contributed their ideas. And because we knew that this is obviously influenced by bias. And first of all, my compliments to the community. Almost no one was like, oh, but actually I disagree with this one point you made. Like, I was so impressed and really happy that like people know this is a tool that has some bias in it. We did our best to make it so that the bias you're getting is the bias of Team Relentless. So you're getting players who generally speaking, I'd like to think that we know what we're talking about. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be really on the what happened in your YBTL game yesterday? I can't remember.
It was close.
It was
It was
really
really
close. That's what happened.
It was a good game at
It
least.
was, yeah. But we wanted to make it so that it wasn't just one person's opinion. You're not just getting my opinion with this or just Nemus. You're getting a lot of people's opinions, and then ultimately we kind of give it a score. It's not a straight average because like Nema knows a lot more about Rebels than I do. He's played them so much more recently that his opinion was given priority on that. So you're really trying. What this tool is trying to do is to try to say, here's a group of players who are pretty good, and this is what we think you should be running alongside these other units. So that's the peek behind the curtain.
And we try to present it as a Team Relentless focused data, right?
Yes,
Which I think
absolutely.
you touched on. It. We're not trying to say this is the way to do it. This is just our sort of opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't like the Rebels, then you blame me and not Ben.
That was my point, actually. Yeah, if you've got it, if you need to take something up with Nema, then at first the Luke Cassian stuff wasn't green, and people rightly were like, and we went, oh yeah, they're right, and we changed it right away. So that's
It
a nice
absolutely
thing.
should be.
We can update it frequently and will, especially as we like learn from Invader League coming up. As the new meta starts to settle in a little bit, we'll know more. Did everyone contribute,
Totally.
or is the tool going to be updated? The tool will continue to be updated as more data is gathered and as more people feel like something should change. We'll continue to update it. If there are and there'll be major updates if there's for any future RRG rebalances and stuff like that. That's the main time that you'll see a lot of it updated. But we might go, oh, which just played really well. That's not quite correct. Let's fix that. So I'm pretty sure you guys just heard a Discord notification too. Oops. Oh well. This is
We're
when
multitasking.
if we were everyone would just ping me on Discord if they were really mean. Please don't do that. So yeah, let me show you just a few more things here. So some people had questions about whether or not this tool was tracking. Is this a tool about strictly unit synergies devoid of the meta, or is it about the meta? And it's really both. And if you wanted to really get a sense for what units I would argue are the most meta powerful units, you need to look at the columns, because the columns represent when something is recommended to be taken. So you can look at R2D2 and you can see in every pairing we recommend that you take R2D2, and with the vehicles we say you'd better take him. That's a 5. You've got to take R2 in that. And that's because R2 he's even with the points increase, his value is incredible. The ability to get a victory point, that's how you win the game, is absolutely massive. And you can see that a unit like Wookiee Warriors, and if Endless is back in the chat, I know that this upsets him. We don't have the Wookiees recommended to go with anything, but in varying degrees. And again, if we're wrong, we're happy to know that, and we'll update the tool as we see how things continue to perform as they go. So you can see we're putting pretty value town on Rebel Troopers and the Mark II Medium Blaster with the points update and the rules update to extend the CM whatever, the heavy weapon for Rebel veterans is now range 4, and the Mark II Medium Blaster Trooper has huge. It's got more health. It's significant that happened. So there are decimals. The decimals represent, we thought about making this higher, but we decided to round down. So you can see like Luke and Han, this means that some people thought that it should probably be a 4 and other people thought that it shouldn't. And we went with, okay, we're going to leave this as a sort of a history, 3.5. There were people who thought it should be a little bit higher. And so that's what those decimals represent. Some of the conversations we've had where something has changed a little bit, and we want to keep track of that. So this is the Rebel
a lot of
one.
opinions flying around on the team.
Oh yeah,
and that was good. How we. There's a lot of granularity in the spreadsheet that doesn't necessarily reflect in the tool. That's a much more simplified version that we thought would be much more digestible for people to take in that information.
Hey, Steven, thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm super glad that you're a collector. And if you, we highly recommend this game. It is super fun. So thanks for joining us this evening. I jumped over to the Imperial one, and in the buying guide video, I mentioned that there's stronger synergies and anti-synergies in the Imperial one. So Empire right now is a place where if you're buying into the game, you really can kind of specialize your army a little bit more. And you can see there's a lot more times that we have given lower scores to units. And part of this is because our teammate Screwtape was very like polar. He gave lots of 1s, which was fine. And so that's part of the reason why you see more red on this one. And then I want to just jump to the clone one and the droid one to let you see behind the curtain on those, and then we're going to go to the tool itself. For clones, you can see that clones, it's kind of like rebels as far as there are certain units where you should almost always take them. R2D2, ARC Trooper strike teams, and Clone Captain Rex being some of the most highly recommended units. And then for this, I think it's a really boring spreadsheet for droids, but that actually I think means it's very balanced. You can really take anything with droids right now, I would say. I don't think there's a unit where you'd be like, ooh, I don't know if you should bring that. You really can bring anything, and that's cool. So there's lots of neutral synergies in this faction.
It's a really interesting faction. There's not a whole lot of unit selection right now relative to the others, or the two older factions, but there's you can build a list with almost anything.
Yeah.
At least be competitive if that's what you're going for.
Zach D, we have we talked about how to share the information out, and we decided that I'm happy to show people this as a sort of a peek behind the curtain, but the intent is that they will sort of be fluid and that we can update them as we go. And we wanted the really clean look that we achieved with the final synergy tool to recommend people. Because again, the origin story of this had to do with the buying guide, and the buying guide was primarily directed at people just starting out. And so while people who are playing a lot more, they might benefit from seeing some of these, just the tiny discrepancies in the numbers and be like, oh, 3.5, that's really interesting. 3.5 to someone who's just starting the game out uh, is probably less valuable. So I think it has more to do with the tool being focused on that. But that's good to know that there's interest in being able to see these numbers as well, and we'll certainly consider if we want to do something with that too. Except Staps and Dekas. Jack card, you're off the team. Get out of here. Get out of here. Look, let's see when Staps are recommended to be taken with 3 different commanders, with B1s, with themselves, with other vehicles, and Droidekas recommended to be taken with way fewer things, just with themselves. It's not like, oh yeah, definitely take Droidekas. I'm curious to see what'll happen to Droidekas, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, screenshot and share. Yeah, you can screenshot it. That's fine. We don't mind. All right, I'm going to jump over to the tool
Look at
itself.
these geniuses.
Yeah, yeah. So here's the tool itself again, and just to again show you what this ends up looking like. So we were just talking about Staps, right? So I'll go into the droid tool, and again, clicking on one of these buttons means I really want to build an army with Staps in it. And then things change colors, and we added pips because we got good feedback, helpful feedback from some people who needed pips because our colors were hard for some people to see. And so now there's pips there too to be able to see those. And you can see, I think, a very good visual representation of what you should be paying attention to most if you want to take Staps. Oh, you want to take Staps? First of all, take more than one. That's why that's blue.
Just keep going.
Yep. And then
until you run out.
Yeah, exactly. And then you probably are going to be running Grievous or Dooku and a bunch of B1s, and then maybe an AAT, maybe some strike teams. The probe droids are particularly good for the Staps because of the observed tokens, but we don't recommend Maul, so that's a little complex, right? But it's just, hey, if you end up building a list with Maul, the probe droids are pretty good with them. So that's where the logic is coming from here. So Nema, is there anything in the tool you want me to highlight for people to see?
I don't think so. I think you've covered the good overview of it. Actually, there is one pretty neat little trick. Let me put a link.
Ooh, yeah.
In the chat.
I think I know what Nema's gonna. He's a very clever man. A well-bearded, very clever man.
Figured Arn and others who like to write their own blog posts and things might benefit from something like I just put in the chat. So one of the features built into the tool is that you can specify a unit that you're interested in the URL of the tool. And so then when it loads up the page, it comes up with that unit pre-selected. So if you're writing a blog post on Luke Skywalker or something, or you're in Discord and having a chat with someone about Luke, and you're like, hey, here's something that would help you with your list building. You can just post a link like this, ending with a unit equals Luke %20 Skywalker, whatever. The browser usually fills in that kind of stuff for you. It opens up the page with that unit pre-selected, and so it's just like a little shortcut.
Nice.
So you can embed a link like that into your blog post or anywhere. It's a nice little shortcut.
I concur. That is super slick. Excellent question from the chat. Little alley-oop here. The other probably most frequently asked question here is the same thing Matt's asking. How come the synergies aren't reciprocal? How come when I click on Staps, it says, hey, you should get B1s. And when I click on B1s, Staps are just like, oh yeah, they're fine. And the reason why is because you always have to go back to remembering that clicking on a unit is saying, I want to definitely include this in my army. So for example, Wookiee warriors are never, we don't recommend that you take Wookiees with literally any other unit when it's clicked on. But Wookiees are super cool. So if you click on Wookiee warriors, we're going to say, oh, you really want to run something with Wookiees in it. That's great. Okay, here's what we think that you should look at. You probably want to take Leia with Wookiees, and probably you should support the Wookiees with some strike teams. Someone right now is thinking, what if I do the full Wookiee skew and I've got like 3 of them and I rush into melee and also there's Tauntauns? Yeah, try it. That'd be cool. You know, that's a skew list, and this is usually not pointing people towards skew lists. If you have a great idea for a list, this tool, the goal of this tool is not, I would, let's put it this way. I would hate to find out that somebody was citing this tool to shut somebody else's list building down. Like that is not what the goal of this is. This is people
No, not at all.
looking for help. It's not, this is the authority. You know, the Legion Synergy tool says that you shouldn't actually be doing that. This is just, hey, I'm interested in building something. What do you think I should include? So that's what that is trying to highlight there. So thank you. I think I was going to forget to say that. So I'm super glad you asked that, Matt. I really appreciate it. Are there other
Definitely.
questions about the tool that people would like to ask right now? I'd love to answer any questions or about how the tool was made. You've got the coder extraordinaire with us right now. So, and I know there's also a lag between what I'm saying and what I'm seeing, so I need to wait patiently. In teaching, we call this wait time, but in streaming,
It's the hard part.
It's the lag time, I guess. But yeah, I am super excited to be able to offer this as a resource to players, and super excited that Nema was
Absolutely.
able to make it so visually appealing and quickly being able to see what's going on with this. So one of the
Well,
things that
thank you. It's fun to work on, and we plan to keep it as like a sort of a living document of sorts, and we'll be adding features, maybe updating some synergies as we go. Oh, maybe there were some synergies or just interactions between units that we hadn't thought about before, and so
yeah,
we'll update those as we
and
go.
and anytime a
Um,
new unit comes out, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
awesome. I wonder about tauntauns. What do we say about tauntauns? Take more tauntauns. I'm curious to
Yeah,
see
I
how
guess.
tauntauns are going to shake out with in the current scheme of things. I think they're still good. I
Yeah,
think that they feel like a reasonable amount of good. So, same with air speeders. I'm hopeful that air speeders will be a real choice. So, but we shall see.
sure. Surge crit seems pretty good.
Oh yeah,
They're fast moving. Um, feels like they're better positioned as the sort of glass cannons that they should be. At a much more of a punch now than they did before.
yeah.
So maybe that's your tank hunter piece.
I think it really could be, especially if more people are taking more armor pieces, as all the armor got better in the whole game, and so all of a sudden the value of impact just went up. Zach asking if the idea of building of clicking on multiple units. My instinct about that is basically then you have something that's like a deck builder, like it's just going to sort of build the whole thing for you. And I don't personally know uh, how I would recommend that that be done. Do you know Nema? What do you think?
I think we'd have to think about how exactly we model that data.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a lot more complex, um, but it's also interesting.
Yeah,
It just in terms of how we set it up and how we think about it. It's an interesting problem to solve,
Nema's already just like, ooh, could I code that?
right? I can do that.
That's awesome.
Problem.
The other and something that other people have been interested in is seeing for every unit what upgrades would be recommended to take more than others. And I think that that might be a good sort of medium term goal for us is to have, and that would be sort of a different tool, right? So, you know, I'm taking Chewbacca. He's got a ton of different training slots and upgrade. What should I actually put on him? And have this same sort of like, well, if you're asking Team Relentless, this is what we would suggest you do. Sort of, again, for especially for newer players, would be really helpful. All right, so does the listing allow for the larger double point games? So if you're going to do Grand Army or if you're going to do Skirmish, right, would be the smaller version. When I put synergies in, I was thinking of 800 point standard games. What about you, Nema?
Yeah, I think that's basically what all of us were thinking as we had our discussions,
Do you think it
going over
changes
those
much though?
spreadsheets. Um, Not necessarily. I think in terms of how the units interact with each other, I don't think that changes much. It it might impact how many of various things that you're taking.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
but overall, I don't think so.
Like I
Well,
think
it
about
it might impact things like the operative slot. I don't remember the rules for Grand Army. Are you still limited to two of them?
I'm not sure about Grand Army. I think you are, but I'm not
Okay.
100% sure. I know for skirmish, when you're playing on a 3x3, a lot of I would rate certain units higher. I would rate Vader higher. I would rate Snowtroopers higher. I would rate anything that's like a melee skew is going to get rated up a bit because you can just close those distances more easily. Um, so I think for skirmish, the values would change somewhat. I'm not sure that they would change much for Grand Army, but that's a good question, Zach. Okay, let's see. I need Mark II X34 synergy for open top transport rules now. Oh, yeah, but I see. Are you, Luis, are you thinking right now that you are going to take your X34 and you're going to put your Mark II medium blaster trooper in there? Because unfortunately, you can't do
We might have
that.
some bad news for you.
Yeah, I know. It's big medium blaster is mounted on the front, right? So you it's because it can only take literally a single trooper unit model, like a single miniature. So it can't take an
Small
emplacement
base.
trooper. Yeah, small base trooper. So you're not going to be able to put the Mark II medium blaster trooper, and it's sort. I think the concept for the X34 is that that's sort of built in, but you absolutely can do it on the tank. If you want to take a tank, please take an E-Web. It's almost like an upgrade slot for it now.
Or don't, as a rebel player.
But
Don't.
yeah, you can't do it. All right. Let's see what else. I've heard various Benjamin saying. I've heard what a wonderful name. I've heard various podcasts that the Rebel Empire strike teams as losing popularity. It seems like they're still a go-to on the synergy tool. Thoughts? This is great. Nema, do you want to answer this?
Sure. I think when as we're evaluating the strike teams, I think we're mostly thinking of it from an activation point of view. Um, Personally, I am actually not too fond of the production that you get out of those strike teams. Um, I've had many games, including my game last night, my YVTL game. My snipers were just missing left and right. Aim shots and all four dice are just blank. Um, so in terms of their direct production, I'm not too fond of them, but people do take them a lot in their lists, and they're pretty strong for their activation padding purposes, and that helps you a lot with, um, especially lists with Luke or Tauntauns or anything that wants to get in really close. Um, it allows you to hold them back and move them in late. That's basically the idea there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, and while you were talking, I was pulling up some of the synergy, the column, and for the rebels, we did turn the strike teams green for every single thing, and like Nema said, it pads the activation count nicely. But for Empire, we don't necessarily, because if you're gonna run like an Iden tactical strike skew list, alpha strike list, you probably shouldn't be taking strike teams. You probably want either 3 ISF or 2 ISF and Inferno Squad, or that and also Death Troopers if you're somehow running Krennic too. And we also don't recommend them as highly with the tank either. So there are certain pairings where they're not quite rated as high, but their value has gone down, but it's still very good. It's notice that it's not blue with anything. We never say, "Oh, you have to take these." It's like, "Oh, this is a really good choice with literally everything." So good.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good.
Clan Ren versus Rebel Mandos. Let's take a look at that. So if we look here, when we click on the Mandalorian Resistance, you can see all the various synergies. And then when we click on Clan Ren, we can see that the only thing that changes is that Sabine becomes blue because they are retinue. Is retinue the right word? Is that right?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just couldn't remember detachment, retinue. What?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So when Sabine does a thing, they get a thing, and so that's why that turns to blue. So that's the comparison that we make with the tool there, and I think you've been running triple Mando skew, right, Nema?
I have.
How's that been going?
It's pretty fun. Uh, they're just like any other Mando. You can they live and die by their defense dice. Just one bad roll and you're that's it for them.
Kaput.
They're so much fun to run. They're so fast, and um, I play them mostly objective oriented. Um, just like Sabine, she comes out of nowhere and scores objectives when I didn't even think that she could get that far. And they present a lot of different threats. Their shooting is pretty potent. So, at one moment you're thinking they're going to pop out and shoot you. The next moment they're moving across the board to score an objective that you weren't anticipating because you were too worried about them shooting at you.
Yeah. Question from Steven about the ability to sort of like plug a list in and get a rating. And that is not something that's in the works right now to just rate your synergy. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to have your list up and then click on, I think most lists have between 1 and 3 key pieces. They're your playmakers. And what you really want to do is make sure that your playmakers have good synergy with the rest of the army. So I would, if you want to kind of check, what might Team Relentless think about this list, think about what your playmakers are and click on those and see if your list kind of somewhat matches. And again, this is not a tool to say that anyone has done something wrong. This is just looking at feedback. So that would be what I would say about that. I will tell you, some of you have watched the playbook and about my ranged firepower and defensive ratings that I give to units, and at some point we'll do a live stream and let people peek at those too, peek behind the curtain at those and see all the different sorts, because that's fun to do. I can get lost in that and look at all the different things for a while. I would love the ability to have a list builder where as I'm building things out, it is actively updating the range firepower rating and defensive rating for the army as you're building it out. So that would be like, oh man, if we could have that and also be recommending synergies at the same time, bellissimo. That would be so cool. But that would be that would be a lot. I think that would be a lot. Would that be a lot? Feels like it would be a lot.
But it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Excellent. Well, are there other questions
like
from
fun.
the chat? We are here to answer. We'll stick around for a few more minutes to see if there's anything else. But I think we're on the verge of wrapping things up. Thank you so much also for coming back. Oh man, this is the first live stream that I've run, and of course I blue screened on it. Of course. Oh man.
All right, we recovered.
Yeah, we did. We're back. So that's
recovery.
good. Yep, Stephen, it's our pleasure to answer, and we are one of the pillars of Team Relentless is helping other people learn, having a growth mindset, and so we're if you look at who responds in the Facebook group, who's active in the Discord, you'll see, and especially in the Discord, all of us have that little R next to our name. You'll see us around a lot, helping players out. That's one of the things that we're passionate about. So, thinking about your rating system, who are your top commanders? So given that particular rating system, it sort of depends, because that is my range firepower ratings and stuff like that are much more in a vacuum. And I did not attempt to account for command cards because it was too complex. It was too much. It would introduce too much bias into that equation. Trying to check my bias with that and just realizing I can't account for how powerful different command cards are, because it depends on so many factors. So there are certain units that I can say, wow, these units are really efficient, and it has more to do with non-commander units. But I think we'll have to set up a time sometime in December to go over that tool together. But so you're asking specifically about my rating system, but if you're looking for what commanders do we think consistently should be played in here? Well, which ones in the columns have the most blue and green? So you can see Iden has a lot of blue and green, as does Krennic. They have the most recommendations for Empire. For Rebel, you can see, I think Cassian has the most. Cassian is, if you go down here, Cassian and R2, who I know is not a commander, but Cassian gets a lot of, right? So we recommend Cassian in most lists as the commander right now. Not that you can't take others, just that he's very good. He's got very strong command cards. For clones, right here you can see the most popular one that we recommend is Rex, the most value. If you're just starting out, by the way, if you buy Rex and 3 core sets and split them with a friend, that's probably the least expensive way to get into the game, and you can run some very good stuff with that. And there's always, okay, what does good mean? You know, people play this game for different reasons. You can play just because, man, you want to put the models that are your favorite Star Wars models out. Some people are wanting to play a little bit more with, like, you know, I want to play to win, within, you know, and being a kind and loving and wonderful human. Obviously, we're not promoting win at all costs. The pillars of
Team Relentless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We're trying to be competitive players, but we are not win at all costs people. So, you know, that we do recommend Rex a bit more there, and then for droids, you can see that nothing gets really recommended a lot more than anything else. The T series, which is not out yet. And so I guess that's a peek behind the curtain too. We've got those synergies ready based on what's been spoiled, but that's not actually in the tool yet. So, oh my goodness. And Grievous has a little bit more. You know, Grievous and Dooku both have 2 times that they turn green. So that would be why. Okay, super late to come along. Don't worry, we're happy you're here. Thanks for the stream. Yep, we are glad that you could be here with us. Steven, does this include the terrain upgrade cards and model pieces? So, Steven, the battlefield expansions, only one of them comes with a unit, and it's the crashed escape pod, and that's how you get R2. It's the only way to get R2, and he's one of the, if you're playing Rebel or if you're playing clones, you should get it, is kind of the bottom line. It's just a really, really, really good card. The other battlefield expansions, terrain expansions, they just have only terrain in them, or they've got some minis and they add to your battle deck. And the battle deck, we do assume that people have access to all of the different battle cards when we make these recommendations. Like, otherwise, I don't think I would recommend Mandalorians as much. There's certain things that the Mandalorians do with objectives that are really powerful. Same with, like, I'm kind of known as a speeder bike guy. I played speeder bikes in every YBTL match except my first one, and I won every single YBTL match except my first one this season with speeder bikes. A lot of people think speeders they write them off, but I ran it with a 20-point bid, and I got bombing run multiple times in those games and other favorable objectives, and was able to pull out wins based on the objective, not based on their ability to, you know, blow things up. So,
and objectives are just such an inherent part of the game. It's hard to analyze a unit without considering, you know, what are they good at and what are they bad at in terms of the objectives.
Yeah. And Zach mentioning here, hey, it would be kind of interesting if we gave that advice in here about, well, you know, are there certain objectives that you would really recommend? And I think at this point, what I would recommend is that you check out, so every Friday night at 7 Central, Director Griffin, who's one of our team members, goes live, and he builds lists live. So what we're doing now, but he's building lists, and he's one of the most innovative list builders in the game. And so I would encourage you to tune into him regularly on Fridays to see what he's up to. And he also takes requests. So if you're thinking, man, I'd really like a list that has a heavy bid so that I can be really good at bombing run, like he's your guy. So I strongly recommend that you tune in Friday nights at 7 Central for that. I really hope it's set. Yeah, okay. Okay. It's 5 Central. It's at 5 Central. It's 7 o'clock somewhere, but it's at 5 o'clock Central. Oh man, that's embarrassing. I've embarrassed myself. I apologize.
West
Director
Coast
Griffin.
bias.
I know. Well, except it wouldn't even be. It's 3 o'clock for us. I just got everything.
Oh,
backwards.
you're right.
I'm still rebooting from my brain's blue screen of death. Jeez. Rex and clones wrote down Steven. Good. Awesome. Interesting to me that Krennic synergizes over Veers. Yes. I struggle with that because Veers is still like my go-to guy, but Krennic's cards are very good. And he is, Veers' 2-pip is just totally dead unless you're running vehicles. But his 1-pip is pretty good, and his 3-pip is very good. Every single one of Krennic's cards is value town. And so I think that's why Krennic gets more recommendations than Veers. How often will it be updated for new releases? Nema, what do you think about that? When should we, if we know, like we know the T-Series is coming out, we've already got some opinions about it. When do you think we should actually put the T-Series in the tool?
I think we can do that fairly quickly. I think it's more a matter of how quickly does the team respond to the information that we get when things get released or spoiled. But yeah, I think we can put in stuff almost as soon as it comes out.
Yeah, that'd be my instinct, especially once we see people playing it, is the way that I'll phrase that. Once we see people playing it, I think it would be comfortable to release the synergies on it.
Steven. We'll be updating it as much as we can with new features and such.
And Griffin answering in the chat as well. It's more troopers than vehicles, which is why you see Krennic popping up more. Absolutely. Oh, the goat shores. I do love those. That's what my list is. Yeah, well, they're not. I don't know if they're goat. I can never remember what the goat part stands for. I call them up shores, but I could be wrong. It's got shores. It's got veers. It's got bikes. It wins. It's fun. Well, fantastic. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much for coming back. We really appreciate it. And please check out this synergy tool. Excuse me. Don't forget to check out the channel. There's a bunch of videos on there. The playbook is a series that I work on, and it's got advice about very specific, how to get better at a very specific thing in Legion. They're 10-minute videos. Tune in every Friday night for list building at 5 p.m. Central with Director Griffin, and be on the lookout for additional content as we move forward. Please take a look at the tool, share it out there. Have a wonderful weekend when it gets here tomorrow. And this has been Mbweha. You can call me Ben.
And Nema of Team Relentless.
And roll well, my friends.
See ya. Thanks for joining us.